It's the 30th of August 2025, and it's the 198th session of Mindfulness for Beginners in English, conducted by the Nissarana Vanaya. So this morning I would like to welcome Venerable Homagama Dhamma Kusala Thero for the session from Nissarana Vanaya. And we would also like to welcome everyone who is joining into this session live via Zoom, and today through Facebook, not Facebook live stream, today YouTube live stream, and those who are downloading to watch this later. So let me give you a little brief about the program. So our program will commence as usual with the in-session practice of mindfulness meditation guided by Venerable Thero. Then we will move on to the talk on today's topic, which is life is too short to argue. Just say Pikachu and move on. That's the topic for today. And finally, we will be moving on to the Q&A and reports from our listeners, and guidance will be, as always, be given by Venerable Dhamma Kusala Thero. So that's the program lineup. So without further ado, let's begin this session, and I would like to invite Venerable Dhamma Kusala Thero for the in-session practice of mindfulness.
Thanks, Tarindu. Hello, everyone. Today, in order to start the session, let's do a sitting session, mindful sitting practice. For this, you can sit in a comfortable manner. You can turn on video if you feel like it. Once you are seated comfortably, you can gently close your eyes. You are seated and you have your eyes closed. Bring your attention to the present moment and notice what you feel. You might feel the body, you might feel the pressure on your back. And when you stay with the body, you get to see the natural breathing in it. Notice how the breath goes in. Notice how it comes out. Maybe the breathing is more prominent at your nostrils. And for some of you, it will be your belly. Simply try to keep your attention with the prominent breathing sensation. Notice how the breath goes in. Notice how it comes out. Time to time, various thoughts, memories come. They grab your attention. Sometimes you feel sleepy. Sometimes pain, irritations in your body. Sometimes surrounding sounds and you start storytelling based on them. But among all these things, we repetitively try to navigate our attention back to the breathing. You get distracted, but you realize it, and you bring your attention back to the breathing. Again, try to stay with the breath for few breath cycles. This way, let's try to continue our mindful sitting for few more minutes. Okay, everyone. So that was our time to do a sitting session today. With that, we can move forward into the next part. Tarindu?
Thank you very much, Swami Mansa, for that wonderful guided session. So next on the agenda is the Dhamma talk based on the topic for this week, which is, again, let me repeat it, life is too short to argue. Just say Pikachu and move on. So I would like to invite Venerable Kusala Thero once again for the Dhamma talk.
Hello, everyone. So this is a continuation from last week, and we are having the same topic. So we will take some time to discuss the same topic and see how we can relate this idea into our practice. Now, most of us, when we deal with certain situations, certain people, we feel friction. We find that certain situations, it's difficult to navigate. Certain people, it's difficult to manage. So that experience is common to most of us. And we experience that there is conflict outside. We feel that we are having trouble dealing with certain situations. We feel that we are having trouble dealing with certain people. So that experience, it's common to us. And what is the real source of the conflict that we are experiencing? What is the real source of this outside conflict? Most of the time we try to point out certain people. We say they are creating conflict in our lives. We point out certain situations. We say due to those situations, the conflict is created. That way, our attention goes outside and we try to point out certain reasons in the outside world. That might be true for your point of view, but when we think about the practice, when we know the real reason for the conflict, we understand it's an internal matter. When you have conflict in your mind, when you have conflict within, it is natural that you start to see the conflict outside. More conflict you have within, more and more conflict that you start to experience in the outside world. So we have to understand the real reasoning for the conflict or the friction that we are experiencing is within. Due to the conflict inside, we are experiencing conflict in the outside world. And let's say some people, they are able to manage situations and people in a better way. They are able to let go of things and focus on the important matters. They can do that. And some people, they feel weak. They always get distracted with the unimportant matters. And maybe they don't have enough energy, time to focus on the important matters to them. So these two we are experiencing. I think the main factor that will allow us to handle situations or people much better would be the presence in your mind. If you are able to be present, then that very quality will allow you to handle conflict in your life much better. If you lack the ability to be present, then that might create a lot of chaos in your life, and you will say there's too much conflict. On average, our minds, they are more or less present probably like 50% of the time. I think Harvard University, they have done this research and they have figured out about 47% of the time our mind is present. And for the remaining time, the majority, 53% of the time, our mind is lost in some thought processes. So this 53%, that is the main reasoning behind conflict that we are experiencing. Most of us, we are dealing with make-believe issues. Most of the issues are not in the real world, but we are creating imaginary issues. Sometimes fearful about certain situations. The incident hasn't happened, but still in your mind you are struggling with fear. Sometimes past incidents, maybe even a decade-old incidents, still keep haunting you. So the ability to be present is crucial. That's the very source of conflict. If you are able to be present more and more, I'm sure you'll be able to navigate this world with less friction. If you are not able to be present, then naturally you see conflict in this world. You feel friction in this world. I think yesterday, a teenager came with her mother and a therapist, and this child, she was having some trouble with a certain relationship and so much suffering in the mind, and asking a way to get rid of this suffering. Clearly feel that this is too much. Clearly feel that she can't bear it. But still, in her mind, she can't let go of all the troubles. Time after time, attention goes to this very addiction with a relationship, and that's the only thing she could think about. Whenever those thought processes take control, she feels pain, irritation, and maybe even feel like crying her eyes out. So you can see this very thought processes, they are creating so much suffering, so much friction in the mind, and they want to get rid of it. They want to escape from those thought processes. But simply wishing to escape, simply wishing to let go of these thoughts, it doesn't work. Instead, you have to apply the training in your life and gradually develop the mind so that it's able to be more and more present. So that type of a starting point, that type of a person, they struggle a lot. But even if they can try, if they can introduce this training, gradually they can move towards betterment. That's the very idea. So you can train this mind to be present. But that training won't happen overnight. That's not the case. Instead, you can train it gradually, and the ability will grow. The ability to be present will grow gradually, like how a plant is growing. You do the necessary part, you give the necessary support, and allow the plant to be. You water it, you fertilize it, you make sure that it gets enough sunlight, and your part, more or less, is done. And you have to patiently do this for few weeks, few months, and then only you will see that the plant has grown so much. Same goes for the practice. You can start doing a sitting session daily. Maybe for a beginner, we would recommend at least like 20 minutes of sitting. That's a good starting point. And you have to do it daily. And in your day, you might be walking for many hours even. During those hours, simply try to notice your steps. Try to practice mindfulness at least for few steps. That way you do your daily sitting session. You try to be mindful during your walking time, and even daily life, you try to approach them mindfully. Initially, it is not strong and it's difficult to be mindful during the daily life. That's true. But what's important is that you keep trying. Every day you do the least number of minutes, like 20 minutes of sitting. Every day you try to approach your daily life with mindfulness. That effort is important, and if you continue, let's say, few weeks, then you start to notice that your practice grows, and naturally the mindfulness will come. During the sitting time you are mindful, and even during your daily activities you are somewhat mindful. So the ability to be present, you are growing in your mind. And when you grow that, you can really see how that very ability is creating less friction in this world. You feel like you are dealing with a different world. You feel like you are dealing with different people. But actually the real change, it has happened within you. Earlier, there was so much conflict inside. You were experiencing so much conflict outside. But now when you reduce the conflict inside, naturally you feel that the world is even meditating. You feel that even your family members are meditating. So you have to understand the real change, it happens within. And when that change happens, naturally the outside world will change. The outside world, you will be able to experience a world with less friction, less conflict. I'm not suggesting that there won't be friction. There'll be friction, but the amount of that, the degree of that will be lower. And longer you practice, lower this friction will become. So that's the very idea. So the quote that we have selected, you can use it as a mantra and you can simply say Pikachu and move on. But you have to understand that mantra doesn't work without the support of the practice. No matter how much you want to let go, still your mind will keep on grabbing the same thoughts, same memories. So with the practice only, you will really develop this ability. The ability to simply say, Pikachu. Simply say, this is not important. Simply lighten the mood and continue with your daily matters. That ability will come with the improved practice. Otherwise, people use these type of mantras a lot, but they don't know how to put it into action. They try repeating the mantra to them. They try saying the same quote over and over again, but it doesn't work like that. Even a couple of days ago, I attended one of the sessions, and there was a doctor from Apeksha Hospital, and his presentation, probably like 20 minutes, and the title of that presentation was Cancer and Happiness. The doctor, he was dealing with cancer patient, and he was sharing his experience dealing with these cancer patients and how they are able to experience happiness even after the disease. So he says some people, they have the ability to accept the worst news that you might hear and still continue their life. Some people listening the news, that very message will break them. Even he shared one of his experiences. This patient came with his wife and they have done a check in one of the labs, and the technician, he did something unnecessary and he said that this report was positive. You should go to a doctor immediately, this technician said. And the patient, hearing this, left his wife somewhere and climbed up to the 5th floor and jumped off that, killing himself. So you can see some people, they can't even listen to this news. The idea of being positive to cancer. That very news will break them. But some people, they accept it. They have the ability to accept it and they somehow continue through these struggles and still are able to live their lives. So the doctor, he was sharing that some people, they have this quality within and they are able to go through these difficult situations with that quality. So he was identifying that quality as happiness. And he was saying pleasure is short-lived. Happiness is the fabric of our existence. Pleasure you seek outside, happiness is within. So all these ideas were given, very interesting presentation, but he couldn't connect the dots, how to create this quality within you. Are you born with it, or do you have the ability to create it? If you say you are born with it, then there is no choice. You simply has to accept what's given to you. But if you say you can develop it, then there is a way, there is hope. So that's the very idea. In this practice of mindfulness, we say you can develop it. But it won't happen overnight. You have to put effort. You have to continue for few weeks, few months. And gradually you will be able to develop this ability. You reduce the conflict within and you'll experience less conflict outside. That's the very idea. And even earlier I said, when you do this practice, you feel that the whole world is meditating. You feel that the entire friends and family, they are meditating. You feel less friction in this world. What is the reasoning behind this? Now the practice, we say it's not only sitting. It's not only walking. Instead, you have to approach the whole awake time with mindfulness. Whether you sit, whether you walk, whether you do some other activity, you have to be mindful. You have to try and practice. That's the very idea. So when you do that, what happens? When you do that, you start to feel less friction in your mind. And Buddha says, the name and form, nama rupa, the name and form will gradually become subtle. What is this? Now initially, we experience a gross mind. We can simply say you are experiencing a gross name and form. You are experiencing a gross nama rupa. But when you practice for a while, that very name and form will become subtle. I'll explain this with the breathing. Let's say breath. That's an indication of name and form. Let's say instead of dealing with the whole name and form, you select breath as an indication for that. And when you observe breathing, you observe name and form. You observe nama rupa. There's a form part behind it, and there is mind-made name part behind it. Only both of these things coming together, you are experiencing a breath. So initially you experience this gross breathing. That is how we start. You feel that I can feel the breathing very well. It is so prominent. This gross kind of breathing is there. But let's say you continue your practice for few days, few weeks, then you realize the breath becomes subtle. The same breathing that was gross earlier, now becoming subtle. And this change, when you are observing, gradually the changing nature will become even more rapid. And one day you will experience a state where there is no breathing. So you can see the breath, it started with a gross kind of sensation and gradually it became subtle and disappeared. So when this happened to your breath, that is nama rupa or name and form. You start with a gross name and form, and gradually it becomes subtle and it disappears even. So this happens. And some people, they go through a single round and they say, my meditation is done. But that's not the ending point. Instead, you see this very process go through many cycles. It starts with gross kind of sensation, then it becomes subtle and it disappears. And if you wait long enough, then again it becomes gross. And if you observe even longer, then this breath again becomes subtle and disappears. So this way it goes through many cycles. So the practitioner, they have to be patient and they have to observe many such cycles in their practice. And when they do that, naturally what happens is your name and form, you have all you know, all you knew earlier was for it to be gross. But now you are experiencing a subtle name and form, and even the name and form disappears for a while. So you have to go through this very experience for many rounds, and naturally, due to the practice, you start to feel a lighter body and a lighter mind. A mind with less friction, a mind with less conflict. And due to that lighter body and mind, due to that lighter name and form, even in your daily life, you deal with other people, you deal with certain situations, but you feel there's less friction. That experience we might get. And initially, this less friction or this lightheartedness, it'll last only for few hours or so. Maybe after a sitting session, it lasts for few hours. Then again, the gross nature appears, the name and form, it becomes gross again. But again, you visit the practice, again you do and experience this lightheartedness. So this way, when you go through many such rounds, gradually this becomes our new normal. Or gradually this experience become a little permanent. Still, your work is not done, but at least now you are experiencing a glimpse of the change that will happen through practice. Your name and form, it has become subtle. Earlier, there was so much grasping towards your name and form, and as a result, it became so gross. But now there's less grasping, and as a result, you are experiencing a subtle name and form. So Buddha's explanation is that due to repetitive practice, when you try mindfulness during your awake time, gradually the name and form, it becomes subtle. And when it becomes subtle, it's natural that you experience less conflict within, and as a result, you experience less conflict outside. This is the change we need. We used to identify with certain situations a lot earlier, but now not identifying so much, at least. Identifying with your thoughts, emotions, identifying with certain memories. They create lot of friction, conflict in our mind. But due to the support of the practice, that identification, it has become less. It has reduced its power. And as a result, you are able to experience less friction in your mind. But the journey isn't over. Still, the friction is there. Still, some of it might not be permanent. So you have to continue the practice. Initially, you feel like all the defilements, all the bad thoughts, memories, all our addictions, lust, anger, these things, they have subsided and their energy is lost. That way you feel after few, let's say, weeks, months of practice. But you have to understand that may be simply due to the power of concentration. You create a certain level of concentration, and that very concentration helps us to feel less friction. But this concentration, it is not permanent. It disappears, and again the mind becomes gross sometimes. So you have to understand this process, it takes some time. Initially, the path of meditation, it appears with lot of wonders. But gradually, when you continue for few months, few years even, the whole process becomes more and more normal. There are no unique meditative experiences, but still simply being present in the moment. And you start, and with few weeks, months of meditation, you feel like a totally different person. But when you continue for few years, naturally you realize you are the same old person. Right? So they say in Zen, there's this analogy of a mountain. They say before the meditation, the mountain is simply the mountain. During your meditation, you transcend the mountain. And after finishing your meditation, simply again the mountain is the mountain. Right? So you will go through this whole journey, and towards the end of it, you will realize you are the same old bugger. But that's okay, because that reality you can't deny. But due to the whole effort that you have taken with the practice, you realize your mind has changed. It has less grasping. The same thoughts, memories are there, same kind of opinions, concepts, but still there is less grasping. The name and form, it is not so gross. It is somewhat subtle, and due to that, it doesn't matter what you experience inside. Those things doesn't create much of friction within you. You get same kind of thoughts, worries, but still there is less friction. Maybe you are not identifying with them into a level as you used to do. You used to identify with them so strongly, but now that identification, it has reduced a bit, and due to that you feel much less friction. Still the same type of thoughts are there, still same emotions, but they are not so strong. So you can see many years of meditation will take us through a journey, and it feels like you are ending up with the same location that you have started. That's true. You have taken a long journey and you arrive to the same location that you started your journey. But when you go through that journey, there is a transformation, and no longer you are identifying with your thoughts, emotions so strongly. Still the thoughts, emotions are there, but they are not so harmful. They don't create so much friction. That change happens. And the seasoned practitioners, they say that they have trouble accepting this reality. They say, I have been meditating for many years. Now I feel like more or less the same person. I don't get any unique meditative experiences, but I can manage my life. I don't feel so much friction within. I don't take things very seriously, but it doesn't feel like the proper destination. This doesn't feel like the destination I was trying to arrive. That complaint is there. But we have to tell them that's okay. This is the very destination. You see, due to the whole journey, the transformation has happened. You have less grasping in your mind. Your name and form is subtle. So why not be happy with the whole journey? Why not be happy with the destination that you have arrived? That acceptance is important, and that very acceptance will do the rest of the job. If you deny that, then you might have to start a whole new journey again. Maybe go find a different teacher, a different method, and continue for many years till you arrive at the same destination that you have started. Right? So it's easier for us to simply accept this. And when you have the acceptance towards that, then the rest of the job will be done by that very acceptance. You accept the person who you are. You don't deny that. You accept your own thoughts, emotions. You accept your own viewpoints. Simply that very acceptance will do the rest of the job. That's the whole idea. So this topic, you have to create that level with the practice only. Otherwise, we can simply say the quote. It's a very nice quote, a popular meme probably, but that won't do a permanent change. In order for you to experience a permanent change, what you have to do is maybe do many hours of repetitive practice, continue for few months, few years, then only you will realize that your mind has changed. You are able to experience less friction, your name and form is subtle, and as a result, you can move on. Your mind doesn't identify with situations so strongly, so it's easier for you to move on and focus on the matters that are important to you. So that's the idea for today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Swami Nansa, for that wonderful explanation of the topic. And with that, we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Q&A and the reports reading. I would like to invite Lushani to conduct this session today. Lushani, are you ready?
Yes, thank you, Tarindu. Thank you. So I'll share, before we start reading the reports, let me just share my screen first. Are you able to see the screen, Tarindu?
Yes, yes, we can see it.
Excellent. Just a quick guidance on how to do the practice, as Bhante said. It's best to sort of do a bit of mindful walking and mindful sitting. Like Bhante said, if you're a beginner, it's good to start with doing at least 20 minutes to begin with, and then up it to about 1 hour each for both mindful walking and mindful sitting. There are 2 YouTube videos on mindful walking and sitting. If you're a beginner, you can watch them for guidance. Once you've done this, it's always best, particularly at the beginning of your practice, once you finish the practice, to write your experiences. So what we call a reflection report. So writing your mindfulness training experience, whether you, under the titles, whether you did mindful walking or mindful sitting, and describing how you felt while you were walking or sitting, and just anything else that you experience, any prominent sensations like texture of the ground, pressure points, or how you felt your incoming and outgoing breaths at the nostril, etc. So putting all of that into a reflection report, and then you can email that to us. There is 2 ways of sending it to us. One is through our Google form, or one is through the email, as you can see on the screen. I think Thero, you will be sharing the links as well in the chat. And then obviously continue to join the sessions, and Bhante we will read the reports like you will see what I'm going to do next. And then Bhante will give you guidance on those reports as to what you should do next. So writing these reports and doing a daily practice is extremely important. That's the only way to sort of go in this path and develop the practice in the longer term. With that said, I will stop sharing my screen. And I will now read the reports. Avasarai Bhante. So there are 2 reports that we have received today. I will read the first report. Mindful sitting. Place in a room, seated on a cushion in any easy pose. Time 8:40 a.m. Duration 50 minutes. Primary object belly movement. First I sat and adjusted the posture. It was like a statue, then listened to sounds. Thereafter observed belly movements rising and falling. Could observe about 6 motions in a length. Gradually perception became vague. I felt legs touching, hands touching, and back pressed against the cushion. Mindful walking. Place, compound, time 7:45 a.m., duration 45 minutes, primary object, sensations on soles of the feet. First I walked few times freely. Cold breezes touched my body and passed me. Sun shone brightly on my face and kissed my cheek warmly. Heard leaves moving here and there. Birds sang a welcome song for me. I stood at the edge of the walking path and observed standing posture. It was like a post. Then I looked 2 meters ahead and walked, labeling feet as left and right, and raised first and was faced first. Body weight was mainly borne by the ankles. Toes were lifted away from the floor finally. Floor was rough and hard. It was rather cold and damp. I began to observe my feet labeling, rising, moving, and placing. This time the mind became more tame and calm. I could observe 9 footsteps in a length. Suddenly a strange dog came, sat on my walking path, looked at me earnestly for some time, and left away. I wonder why this happened, first time in my life. But my mind considered it as a natural phenomena, and I started my meditation again. After some time, it began to rain hard, and I disappeared into the home. Mindful eating, mindfulness in day-to-day life. When I served food, the plate became heavy. When I washed my hand, I felt fullness of water. When I sat down to eat, I felt my back touching and pressing against the chair. I smelled the food and it was mouth-watering. I looked at food and various colors appeared. When I put in my hand on food and mixing, I felt the hardness, roughness, softness, and warmth of food. When I put some food into the mouth and chew, I felt the salty taste, milky taste, bitterness, and hotness. When I chew, my upper jaw remained unmoved while lower jaw moved according to a rhythm. Tongue moved here and there, and I loved teeth to grind food. Normally, I chew one mouthful 40 times. So I could observe the way saliva gradually flow into food. Gradually, food became soft and like porridge. Taste changed to a milky taste. Eventually, I swallowed, and food passed through the throat towards stomach. It took me nearly 16 minutes to finish eating. Swamin Wahansa, please give me further advice for me to continue my practice. End of the first report.
Okay, so that's a great approach. We are happy to hear that you're practicing, and it's good to always, share with the group as well. Now, the walking, sitting, and even the daily practice, this is the way. You don't have to do any change. What is important is that simply practicing. Every day, do a walking session, do a sitting session, approach your daily activities mindfully. Initially, it might take some time for you to do, especially the daily activities, but gradually you are getting used to the natural pace and simply being mindful in that. That's the very idea. And let's say even the food that you are eating, when you observe the whole process, when you chew it for 40 times, the taste will end up more like in a milky taste. So initially it is so tasteful, but when you observe throughout the process, that very taste will disappear and will end up in a milky taste. So you can see even the food, if you continue to observe them, this very change happens. It's like observing the breathing. You start with a gross breath and you continue to observe it and you end up with a subtle kind of a breathing. You start with a gross taste. You continue to observe it throughout like 40 times of chewing, and at the end it will be more like a milky taste. Not only in these two, even in other activities, the same process happens. No matter whatever the things that you like, whatever the things that you have certain interest, if you observe through the whole process, this very change becomes prominent. Even the most desiring people, most desiring things in your life, if you start observing, then you realize this very change is happening. You see how you start with lot of excitement, lot of gross kind of sensations, and at the end, you realize you are getting sick and tired of it. That very gross kind of sensations, feelings end up being subtle. So that very change, that very process, keep observing. That's a good way of practicing. You approach something with lot of excitement, and at the end, you get sick and tired of it. That whole observation is there in each and every activity that we do. It's our ignorance that won't let us see this. So we being mindful and observing through these activities will help you to notice this change that's happening. It's happening with each and every activity. It's happening with each and every encounter. You have to be mindful and simply notice. And when we continue the practice like this, sometimes different things happen. And the rain comes, or maybe the nature sings welcoming songs for you. Certain odd kind of incidents happen. But you shouldn't be asking the question why. If you start asking the question why, and if you start thinking about these incidents, then that doesn't work good for your practice. You have to simply say Pikachu according to today's idea. Simply say Pikachu and move on. Let go of that incident and simply notice the walking again. Simply notice the breathing again. If we start thinking on these encounters, if you start answering the question why, then that's a good way to get distracted and maybe even lose the practice that you are doing. So you have to understand things happen due to certain causes. That's okay. You acknowledge it and you move forward with the next moment. Again, notice the breathing. Again, notice the steps. That way you have to continue. Many such things will be experienced in the future as well. But we are not trying to answer why. Instead, we acknowledge it. We continue with our present moment. That's the very idea. So let us know your progress.
Thank you, Bhante. I'll go on to the second report. Walking meditation. The mind naturally goes to feet on and off when walking any distance. Mind stays on the feet for short periods of time and then wanders before returning to either the left or right foot being placed. The pressure of the foot on the ground, warmer, colder areas of foot noted. Walk for about 45 minutes. Sitting meditation. Notice the preference of the mind to join a group to sit than sit alone more recently. Sat for 30 minutes watching breath. Mind stayed on breath for 12 breaths, wandered and returned to breath. Thoughts were distracting at times, proliferating and fell asleep before waking up. Mind going back to breath. There were times when mind noted pains, heartbeat, but went back to breath. Shorter out-breath, warmer and occasionally breaking up. Daily mindfulness. Was feeling unwell with nausea and body aches 2 days before a dana at our home. Had planned to shop that day, with difficulty did this, as the mind contemplated that the condition might be worse by the following day and the shopping might not be able to be done. Decided to watch the nausea, lack of appetite, aches, and reflect on what was going through the body using mindfulness rather than take any medication. Had to go to bed and did just that. Mind aware of increased rate of breath, warmer outer breaths. Watch the changing nature of the condition. Could only sip hot water through the next 2 days as appetite slow to return. Had a meeting with a Dhamma friend the next morning and initially thought of cancelling it. Noted mind aware might be better by the morning as all situations change and could cancel in the morning if still unwell. Felt no nausea the next morning and shared experience with the friend who suggested writing this report. The dana went off well too. With gratitude to Bhante and organizers. End of the report.
Yes, couple of things. Now in the walking and sitting, you have practiced for a while and now you realize naturally the mind returns to the breathing or the steps. It wanders away, but after a while naturally returns. So when you realize that, when you develop that confidence, the meditation becomes much simpler. With less effort, you can do the meditation and it becomes more like a hobby. You simply have to watch this very nature. You observe the steps for a while, then mind goes to various thoughts, memories. Again, it comes back to the primary object naturally. You don't have to interfere with it. Simply being with this whole process would be your meditation going forward. That's the first thing. Then the second one, it's a good experiment. We usually don't do this. So when you are sick, it's more like nature's break or nature's way of suggesting a break to you. So you take it. Don't try to, gulp down some medication and simply carry on with your daily encounters. Instead, it's a nice way to, take a break. And during the break, we try to notice what is happening. Observe this sickness and the irritations, temperature differences, then certain other things that appear in your body due to the sickness. And when you do that, you can naturally see the power of mindfulness or the healing power of mindfulness. It comes into action. And even throughout a common cold, you can simply survive. You can maybe take some herbal tea or something, drink some honey. With that, you can survive. With hot water, with salt water, you can survive. And you get to experience the whole process of body weakening and falling into sickness. And again, the body is strengthening and recovering. So these things, they are not terrible things to experience. They are natural to your body. And what we do in this practice is simply to accept them and go through them mindfully. That's the very idea. And it will generate a new insight into your own body and mind. You can even see the reaction of the mind during a sickness. If you become feverish, then you can see how you lose the control of your mind. It goes into some kind of a weird kind of a state and it's out of control. But you have the ability to simply observe what is happening. So that's a good effort. We encourage you to continue during such occasions and improve your practice.
Thank you, Bhante, for your guidance. So now we have some time for any questions. So if you have any questions you want to ask Bhante, please raise your Zoom hand and we can unmute you and you can ask your question. Doesn't look like we have any questions, Bhante. Harindu? I don't think there are any questions. Do you have a question, Harindu?
No. I was about to take over.
Okay. So Bhante, thank you so much for your valuable guidance today. Much metta. I will hand back to Tarindu.
Yes. Tarindu's questions today are all about live streaming.
Yes. And we found answers. And we found answers to most of them. So hopefully things will improve in the coming weeks.
Okay.
Thank you, Lushani, for conducting that session. And as always, thank you, Bhante, for your inputs. And thank you very much for everyone who shared the reports. So with that, we have come to the end of today's session, so I kindly seek Venerable Dhamma Kusala Thero's permission to end the session. Yeah. Okay, I've got a thumbs up. Right. So on behalf of the organizers, I would like to thank Venerable Dhamma Kusala Thero for the continued guidance on this program, and not forgetting the Chief Abbot of Nissarana Vanaya, who initiated this program, Venerable Bhante Udayiviyagama Dhamma Jiva Mahathero. May these merits help them in improving their own practice. And thank you to all the organizers who are maintaining and managing this program. There's a lot of things that's happening behind the scenes, so thank you very much, everyone. And I would like to thank all those who participated today, and everyone who's listening to us via live streams on YouTube today, and later on Facebook. We are going to share the video link on Facebook as well, so that our usual viewers, our usual listeners can get the video. So that's all for today. So until we see you all next week, I would like to wish you a happy and a mindful week ahead.